Hi everybody, welcome to video journalism again, week 3, where every picture tells a story. So today we're talking about how to actually film some video to tell a story, to add to the stuff we've been learning in the last couple of weeks on how to construct a news story. So before we go into this and we'll talk about visual literacy, I'm just going to go into the course content folder. So there's just a couple of little housekeeping things I'd like to talk about. Firstly, if you are not sure, all your tutorial topics are in the unit content folder, study guide topics, and then you go into topic 2, topic 3. So we're up to topic 3, production, planning and execution. And there's lots of good stuff here. So there's lots of readings for you to do as well. But more importantly, so you can go through the overview, the objectives, the readings. There's some nice videos for you, some planning, shooting overlays, lots of good stuff. There's also discussion topics, which not many people are doing. So I can't help you if you don't post things on the discussion board. So if you go back up, there's a discussion board here with discussions posts per tutorial. And as you can see, I've only got 7 posts on there at the moment. So I can't really help you until you get on there and start becoming active and start doing things on there. But anyway, hopefully this one gets you started. So today I'm just going to go through the slides of the PowerPoint for you, and I won't go into too much depth because most of the stuff's on the tutorial content. But what I have done for you is in the second part of this tutorial, I am showing you a lecture I presented to the on-campus class, and I recorded all the equipment I use. Now, one of the good things about this course is that we're not completely focused on the quality or the high quality of the video, but more about the basics of video. If you're doing my page to production class, you'll do more detailed stuff on actually capturing image according to film standards. But for here, we just want nice, clean pictures. And for most of you, you can use your DSLRs or even your phones. And I'm going to produce another little video for you next week, and I'll go into detail how you can produce content with just your phone, because you've always got your phone with you. It shoots excellent pictures, and if you look at the next video that I've put together, I'll show you a quick little setup, and next week I'll actually produce one where it'll be much more in depth about mobile or mobile journalism. Okay, so visual literacy, it's basically telling stories through our cameras, basically. And our cameras work on a process of light. So without light, there is nothing. So there is a level that it works on. 0 is no light. It's complete darkness and you can't get anything. And 100 is the maximum level of light. And it's got this thing called an IRE level. Now what we need to do is make sure that that light is what's processed by our eyes and our brain, but it's also processed by our cameras. Okay, so whatever the camera focuses on and it's got the correct exposure of light, it just reproduces that in the chips, and then the same way that our eyes and our brains do the same sort of thing. Now, light is just a wavelength, and there's different types of wavelengths. There's longer wavelengths, shorter wavelengths, amplitudes, and they all basically tell a little bit of a story. Now, we can only see a certain amount of light from a certain spectrum, but most cameras can just pick up that easy to process light and come up with a really nice image. So there's lots of theories on it, and part of your reading is going through the cognitive seeing is thinking and the semiotics, the science of signs, and you'll be going through those readings when you produce your stuff for the discussion board. And then when you integrate it with audio, you become a video journalist. So just for your basic framing of your camera and what type of shots we use. So the pan is when the camera moves left to right. Quite nice and simple. So I'm going to show you my tripod in the next video, and you can just pan the camera left to right to tell a bit of a story, moving from one image to another. Nice and simple. Tipping the camera just to go up and down. Again, just telling the story. And tilting the camera, it's just moving it to the top to the bottom, similar to a pan, but ideally to show height and depth. And zooming, I don't like the zooming shot, but many people use a zooming shot. In the example I showed you last week with the Northcliffe story, they zoomed into a shot of the surf. I don't use it so much, but when you look at my Lex video tutorial, you'll see that I actually like still shots mainly. And if there's no action going on in my shot, then I move the camera. So when we frame shots, they all tell a story. So close-up shots are very emotional. So the more you get to people's eyes and face, it brings out a lot more emotion. So the further down you get, down the end, the very long shot is basically an establishing shot, just giving you a sense of time and place. And if you look at the long shot, you'll see that it's the same size as a human being. So when you're basing shots or trying to work out what type of shots to use, or you're not really sure of the naming of them or the vernacular of all these things, as you can see, the extreme close-up is an ECU, big close-up is a BCU, medium shot is an MS, a medium long shot is an MLS, a close-up is a CU, and a medium close-up is an MCU. And the long shot, which I'm talking to you about, is the LS, and a very long shot is VLS. Now, there'll be some differences depending whether it's an American or a US standard, and some people have changed the terminology a little bit, but they all sort of mean the same thing. So just remember, a human being is a long shot, and if you look at a medium shot, it's half a human. Okay, a close-up is a full head, and that's the way I sort of look at things. So I base it on the human body or the subject that you're filming. Now, there's a thing called rules of thirds, which again, if you're in my page to production class, you'll know that I talk about. But the camera framing basically has 4 points of interest, and that's where the thirds line up. Okay, now most cameras have got these little grids on them that can show you and can help you out. So I always like the eye line of the person to be on the top third, and their center of their body, or close to the center of the body, on either side. Now it depends which side you want to put them on, but if you're going to put them on this side, they need to be looking at the open space here. Okay, so we don't want his eyes blocked off. So if he was on this side, we'd have to turn him around so that his eyes are facing that way. We need looking room and we need eye room. Okay, so always look at the thirds, and again, I'll try to do a couple of little demonstrations for you next week when I do my Mojo demonstration for you. So there's a couple of things you need to do before you go out on a shoot. Always make sure your lens is clean, make sure you've got a full battery, and think about your shots. And what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to show you where I've got a little shot list for you where you can actually graph things, and so that when you go out for a shoot, you know exactly what's going to happen. Now there's this thing down the bottom calling shooting for the edit. Now what that does is I try to get an idea of what the story is going to be in my head before I go out, so that I know when I go film something, I'm going to shoot for the edit, which means that I'm only going to shoot shots that I think will edit easily. So I don't go and get heaps of elaborate shots or anything else, because it makes the edit so much harder. And in news, you need to do things really fast. Okay, so shooting for the edit's really good. Like you can almost just grab the file straight off the camera if you shoot for the edit, and put them in your non-linear editing software, and only have to really touch them up. And that means starting and stopping your shots without too much lag on each side. Now I talk about this again in the next video, but accessories, you need some sort of external microphone where possible. Now I've used my phone without an external microphone in a hurry, and it works okay, but we really need to get nice clean sound, and I talk about a type of microphone we can use. And we need that so we can get nice clean audio, because part of news is not only just video journalism, it's not just the visual element, it's also the audio element. So if you haven't got a very good interview, or it's muffled, or it's too soft, or it's actually too loud, it just doesn't work. And now things that's in the digital world, if things are too loud, they'll blow out and you won't even get anything for you. You won't even get a decent sound. Just more housekeeping, make sure all your power leads and cabling are secured, and give yourself enough time to make sure you get the shot done properly. Never rush the talent, and do lots of planning beforehand. It's really, really important. Now, our camera settings, if you're using a DSLR or using a Sony Z7 like the ones that you can borrow from the uni, we want you to use the manual sound controls where possible, because if there's a really loud sound in the background, that's what it'll pick up rather than your talent. So manual sound controls are the best, and always do a white balance when you change directions or locations. And the reason we do that is because the color white looks different out in the sun than it does under your normal interior tungsten lights. And always test your levels before you record an interview. Now, what I do, especially if I record on my phone, is I get the person to ask the person their name and their position first, and then I record that, and then I go back and play it back to make sure that it's okay. If it's okay, then I continue with the interview. I won't do it otherwise, because if you got that wrong, you're going to wreck your whole interview. You can make a note of your time code before each shot. I don't do that much these days, but it's good practice. And wherever possible, again, use manual focus, because if something's moving in the background, your focus, if it's in autofocus, it'll pick up that subject rather than what you're trying to do. Now, when you're setting up your talent, put them at ease, let them know how you're going to start and where to look, and make sure they're looking at you and not the camera, okay? Then you call tape rolling. You're the camera person at the moment, and so that your talent knows that you're recording. And then just call cut so everybody knows that you're not recording anymore. And just on there, it's when you're working with a camera person, but because you're doing video journalism, you'll be working on your own. Now, writing down a list of shots, that's really your job at the moment. So ideally, a television story shouldn't have a script at all. The video and sound on the tape should carry the story, and non-verbal information is the most important in video journalism. So the first step is to get facts from other sources. The second step is to get footage or tape, and the third is to write the script and decide what to say. Now, if you're working in the broadcast environment, you probably could prepare the script beforehand. And this stuff here that I'm talking about, this is really for a newsroom where there's a separate camera person and a separate reporter, but you guys are going to do this all yourself, and there's no problem there. And I mean, if you want to, you can get someone to do it for you, but it's no problem. And we don't really have light people anymore, or sound people, or producers. That's more for a documentary crew. And when you're doing your current affairs stuff and documentaries, you can get a bigger crew. And then this is just a really good thing to work on. You shoot the temporary first. So if there's a fire or there's a bridge that's about to collapse, you shoot all that first before it's gone. And then the second thing is shoot an establishing shot, which is the extreme wide shot or the very long shot that I showed you, which gives you an overall view, location, size, and scale. Okay, so it gives people a sense of time, place, and circumstance. And then you start going down, you start telling the story by the long shots, the medium shots, and the close-ups, okay? You're starting to build a bit of a narrative through your visual language. Please use tripods where you can, stand-ups for interviews, and when you're editing, hold shots of 5 seconds on each side that you've got some room to edit with as well. People's faces are excellent for reaction, so always shoot people's faces. Now, Vox Pops are great. They're basically the voice of the people, very useful in television news and spontaneous, and you get some really good stuff from people. And then interviews can be shot over the reporter's shoulder. That's if you're using a camera operator, but because you're doing it yourself, you can actually just hold your camera up and frame it and then talk to the person, and I'll show you how I do that as well. Again, get the people to look at the reporter or you, don't look at the camera. Okay? So you should get a variety of shots, and I'm going to go through that in a second, and I'm going to show you where that list is. So insert cutaways, add additional visuals to the scene, do lots of establishing shots, reaction shots, re-ask to shoot the reporter after the interview's asking questions just to get some reaction or extra footage. A reverse shot, go backwards and shoot the audience from over the speaker's shoulder. Different types of effects, you can use wide angles, extreme close-ups, or different types of angles. And just remember, when you transition things, you're taking a person from one idea to the next visually. The reporter can have a list of shots together in a notebook, and this will help you prepare for the voiceover as well, so when you go in and do a voiceover. And, again, just the simple stuff we were talking about last week. The news story often uses the W format and the H, the where, why, when, who, what, and then how, starting with a lead. And that's just a bit of a sum up from last week. And up in the middle, interview, and at the end, you can do a stand-up by the reporter. Okay, and we're going to talk all about those shots in the next couple of weeks as well. And with part of your assignment is going through and deconstructing a story and a bit of a case study. So you'll understand what I'm talking about when you go through all your shots. Okay. We talked all about that. Try not to overwrite. Keep your sentences short and simple. Write as you speak, not as you write, because it's conversational. Remember, the audio should interact with the video. It should not describe the video, but rather give you something else to add in, more of an impression of the viewer, for the viewer. Where possible, let the video and the sound do the talking, and you should just do your voiceover for transitions and flow of the story. Okay, and again, just speak conversationally, because video is more about conversation rather than having a conversation between you and the audience rather than someone reading things. Okay, so that's the end of the slideshow. Now, if we quickly go back into our course content, if you go into unit content, other resources, sorry. So there's the scripts I had for you last week. Now, if you look at the shot list exercise template, I've already got it up. So, and then some pitching ideas as well. But if you click on that, I've already got it up for you to have a look at. Okay, it's a shot list template. The aim of this exercise is to practice all the types of shots, movements, and angles to tell the story visually. Refer to your textbook or your readings, or follow this link. And if you go through, you can write all the different shots that you're going to have. Now, I was telling you before that sometimes the terminology is a little bit different, so I'll go through these ones for you too. So I would have 2 interviews at least, interview 1, interview 2. And before we had very long shot, but these are extreme wide shots, okay? Very wide shot, mid shot, medium close-up, extreme close-up, a cutaway, a piece to camera, and a vox pop, okay? So you can add all these things in and describe the action, the content, and rationale for taking the shot as well. So that'll give you a little exercise to work with as well. Okay, so that's all for the first part of the lecture. The second part is I show you a demonstration of all my equipment and what we can use. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next week with a Mojo tutorial.